This is an 8th grade class. There are books at all of the, there are books set out at a table. There's a computer lab. And as the district, we have an acronym that we already use, RAISE, that stands for Respect, Achievement, Inclusion, Service, and Empathy. That's already kind of part of the language of how the kids are talking about citizenship in general. So that's kind of the framing for all of this. So, good afternoon, everybody. Ignore the books on the tables and don't sit at the computers just yet. We're actually going to have a seat in a circle on the floor, just like old times. But I want you to just face forward for a second. We're going to go over our agenda, and then we'll kind of get to why we're sitting in a circle. So our agenda for today is to go over the agenda. Then we're going to do something that I'm calling a meeting of the minds. So I kind of want to just talk as a group together. So we're going to have a chance to do that before we really get started into anything. Then we're going to talk a little bit about digital citizenship. I know that's a mouthful, so don't worry if you're feeling like that's a little bit too intense for you. We'll get to that in a second. Then we'll have an online activity using Google Classroom. Again, you're super used to getting onto Google Classroom. We've used it in the library. You've used it for Miss Smith, so it'll be fun on Google Classroom. Then I'm going to introduce you to our project. It's brand new this year, and I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to need your feedback, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that will entail. And then finally, we'll have time to choose books relating to your Dr. Martin Luther King biography project, and then there'll be an exit ticket that you'll have to fill out. Our goal for today is that we will understand the relationship between the acceptable use policy that we have in our school and online interactions. And we will begin to work as a group to create a single artifact for use in the library describing proper online etiquette as described in the acceptable use policy. I know that's really wordy, so let's get right to the essential question. So how can we demonstrate our RAISE values when we're collaborating and publishing our work online? So how can we demonstrate those things that we've practiced demonstrating in the classroom, in the hallway, inside and outside of school? How can we bring that to the online environment? So let's do our meeting of the minds. We're all going to sit in a circle. I want you all to face in, so we're going to sit in a circle. I need one person to raise their hand to volunteer to be our moderator. Thank you. Yes. So what you're going to be doing as the moderators, you're just going to keep track of the conversation and make sure that everybody's having a chance to talk. If the conversation lulls, you'll kind of say, oh, don't think James has spoken in a while, so that would be your job. Let's see, and I need somebody to take notes as well. Just take a quick note. Thank you, yes. So I wanted to just kind of talk as a group, and I don't want to have to lead the discussion. You guys are in 8th grade. I'm really interested more in what you have to say. So I have some discussion questions, but I'd really like to hear what you think. So could someone recap what are our RAISE values and why are they important? That's great. So how do we demonstrate those RAISE values? How do we demonstrate being respectful in the real world?
Holding the door open first.
Holding the door, exactly, beautiful. Why is it important to demonstrate respect, achievement, inclusion, service, and empathy? Why is it important to demonstrate that in our lives?
To make the world a better place.
Yeah, to make the world better. Like why is it important? All of those values put together translate into us being good people, right? So it's really important that we try to demonstrate that in our lives. So when we think about Dr. Martin Luther King and the RAISE values, what things kind of come to mind? Do you think he would have been a fan of RAISE? Yeah, absolutely. So I know you've brainstormed a little bit in Miss Smith's class when you were talking about qualities that he demonstrated. You'll see that there's a lot of overlap between the qualities that you guys talked about in class and our RAISE values. There's a lot of overlap there. So that's kind of what we're going to be going with as we move on today. So that discussion was totally great. And again, this would have been about 10 minutes of talking back and forth and having the kids discuss. But that was great, and I think we have a lot of really great ideas. I'm really excited about your energy, and clearly you're all feeling very, very passionate about why this is all important. So, we understand why this is important in person, but what about how do we do this online? It's a totally different question online. So at this point, I'd like everybody to please stand up, go to the computer lab, and log into the computers, and log right into your library classroom. So we're moving on to our discussion of digital citizenship. So what is it to be digital citizenship? What is this all about? So digital citizenship is the norms of appropriate, responsible technology use. Just like we have norms for our behavior in school, those are, again, our raised values, we have norms for our behavior online. And sometimes it's tricky to determine what's normal and appropriate online behavior. Why do you think that is? Somebody would say, why do you think it's, so we'll get to that, don't worry. So we're gonna head on over to our classroom, hopefully you've all logged in. What we're gonna do in the next couple of minutes is I'd like you guys to just review our acceptable use policy. You'll read through here. I want you to pay particular attention to the network usage guidelines. You guys are in 8th grade, so I'm gonna let you read silently to yourselves, and I want you to be thinking about our raised values as you read through this guideline. That happens. Great, wonderful. So let's get back to our discussion about digital citizenship. Do you feel, we're gonna keep going. So when we're thinking about the acceptable use policy and we're thinking about ways that we can demonstrate our raised values, I know it's really easy, again, to think about them in real life, but how do we translate that to our digital lives? So let's come up with some differences between how we interact with people in person and digitally. So how are real life interactions happening? I started us off by saying, so in real life we have face-to-face interactions. In real life there are consequences. If I say something really mean to your face, I immediately see you, how that makes you feel. What are some other things that happen in real life? Yeah, James.
You pause to let the other person talk.
You pause, yeah, you absolutely, you sit and you listen to what the other person has to say. There's more of a real-time dialogue, absolutely. Any other qualities of a real-life interaction? So how about digital? So I started us off again. So digital interactions are not face-to-face. They're computer to computer. The tone is sometimes really hard to determine. Raise your hand if you've ever sent a text or an email that you thought was hilarious that ended up causing some kind of, yeah, there you go. So that's huge. If I told a joke in front of the class, you'd all laugh because I'm hilarious. Online may not be necessarily the case. So there's clearly a big difference between our real life interaction versus our digital interactions. We want to make sure that we're, again, always keeping those raised values in mind. So I have a little video here, and I'm not sure if the stereo will work, or the sound will work. And this is a middle school girl talking about what happens when people don't use their raised values when they're online. Ooh. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but I think it's a good idea to get this.
One time, me and this girl got into like a disagreement because her friend saw me comment her boyfriend. She thought something was going on, so she got mad, and then her friend started like harassing me on MySpace. What they did was they would post bulletins like, "Oh, she's so stupid," and she just wanted to pick a fight with whoever. And since I'm tiny, I was always the girl who gets picked on, just because they think I won't fight back. So it started off with just her saying, "Stay away from my friend's boyfriend." And she started messaging me and telling me, "Oh, you better watch out," threatening me and stuff.
So we will watch the whole thing. So what do you think about that online interaction? Was that an example of somebody using their raised values? No, absolutely not. Do you think they would have probably done this to this girl's face? It sounds like a lot of the bullying was really happening online. So again, it's really important that we're able to kind of think about being respectful and inclusive and having empathy when we're online as well as in person. So, hello. So we're going to head over back to our classroom for a little online activity. So again, I've posted the acceptable use policy up here. Feel free to take a look. We've already read through it. After reading the acceptable use policy, you're going to write up one rule that you thought was important for students to remember as they work and share information online. We're going to keep those raised values in mind. I understand that the acceptable use policy seems kind of like a lot, and I know very few, if any, actually read it when it came out, when it was sent home. And I think that's part of the problem of the acceptable use policy. It seems really difficult to read. So I want you guys to translate what you found was the most important part of the acceptable use policy when thinking about our raised values. And I want you to post it into our Google Classroom discussion. After you post your rule, you're going to comment on somebody else's rule and why you think that that rule is also important. I want you to really show your thinking. I don't want you to just say, oh yeah, that's a great idea, Brad. I want you to tell us why you think Brad's idea is really good. I want you to show your thinking there. And again, when we're posting online, we're making sure that we're being respectful. We're showing empathy. We're being good citizens, even in the context of this online discussion. So give them time to do that. Beautiful. We're going to take a look at all of those comments and sort of talk about them. It seems like a lot of the same themes came up, which is wonderful. Does anybody have any questions about that? No? Beautiful. So now I kind of want to introduce you to our project. So like I just said, I think the acceptable use policy, and thumbs up if you felt like the acceptable use policy when you were reading through it was a little hard to understand. A little bit. So what I thought we would do is we were going to translate the acceptable use policy into a guide that's helpful for middle school kids. So you guys are going to be, we're going to be changing this whole thing around. So we're going to be creating an online guide. I've shared an online guide in a Google slideshow, and we're going to work as a class to work on this project. So let me pull this up. So our digital citizenship project is due on December 23rd. You're going to have a ton of time to be able to do this. The idea is, again, that we're going to be working as a class to develop a guidebook for online behavior for other students in the school. You're going to translate our raised values to our online environment. So how does somebody show respect online? What's one way that somebody might show respect online? How might the girl in the video, how might have her friend have shown respect to her instead of bullying her? What's one that she, yeah.
Post to her directly, like a private message.
Beautiful. Like, how can you be inclusive online?
Ask other people to comment on something?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to translate our raised values to our online environment. We're going to be using those guidelines that we brainstormed earlier. And the twist, bringing it all back to our MLK project, is you're actually going to be writing these rules as if you are the person you're researching. That's why I'm giving you a lot of time. So, let's go back to this assignment. So we're going to use the rules we talked about in class. We're going to write the guidelines as if you are your historical figures. And what might they say about our online behavior? What might they think is important? We're going to work as a class. So you have one giant digital document written by Mrs. Smith's eighth graders. I'm going to publish this, and we'll be able to share it with the rest of the kids in the school. So we can even just start out. So respect. What is what is one of the words that you brainstormed with Martin Luther King? Courage. Courage, yeah. So how can we be respectful and courageous at the same time? This is a longer debate. You can kind of start this off. All right. Any questions on this project? So we understand it's a class project. It's one piece of evidence, so you're not working individually. You're going to have to edit the same Google Doc. You guys have had plenty of experience using Google Slides, so you kind of know how this works. The idea is you're working as a class to be able to add information. So the final kind of piece of this is you need to actually choose your book. So what I've done is I've gone through, so now that we've started talking about what our raised values look like online, which we've had a big discussion at the beginning of class with, let's think about them in terms of our biography project. So the books on the table that I told you to ignore earlier, these are people that I've selected just from looking at the catalog that exemplify certain aspects of race. So I brought a couple here. For respect, I chose Susan B. Anthony because she demanded the respect to be able to vote, just like all the men in her life were able to vote. She demanded respect. For achievement, I chose the greatest, Muhammad Ali, because he was the greatest. For inclusion, I chose Dr. Martin Luther King, whose whole mission was to be inclusive for other people. For service, I chose Clara Barton, Civil War nurse. She served these soldiers in the Civil War. And for empathy, I chose The Diary of Anne Frank, because she had a lot of empathy for both people in her situation, as well as other people in the world. So does everyone kind of understand where we're going with this? So feel free to use the keywords that you brainstormed in class, but I also encourage you to think about keywords that relate to the RAISE values as well as MLK when you're searching the catalog. You do not need to limit your selection to these books. Use the keywords we've talked about and search the catalog. You can use the RAISE values. The subject of your biography will inform your writing on the RAISE guidebook. So try to reference your subject in the wording of your guidelines. You're also going to be talking as if you are that person. So make sure that if you are writing about one of these, we want to tie it in. If you're writing about one of the RAISE values, you want to tie it into whoever you are researching. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to find your books. After you found your book, and again, you can choose from my selection or you can search the catalog, your ticket out of here is this exit ticket right here. So I will pass these out. On here, I'd like you to write your name, the date, the person you chose for the biography project. I want to just make sure I know who people are choosing. And once again, we have our essential question on here. So how can we demonstrate our RAISE values when we're collaborating and publishing our work online? We had a discussion at the beginning of class. We talked a little bit about what citizenship looks like in real life versus online. So I'd like you to write one way that a student could demonstrate RAISE in an online environment. We had some practice with that as well, so you should have a lot to pull from. I just want one way that you could show some aspect of RAISE online. Are there any questions before I let you guys go off and find your books? No? Then thank you very much. The end.